So thank you for joining me today, Todd. This is the Unscripted project, episode 2. And today we're talking to Todd Allred. He is the executive director for PHCC
Washington, yep.
Washington. Got it. Cool. Let me switch it over to you and take it away. Just a little short intro.
Yeah, my name is Todd Allred. I'm the executive director for the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors of Washington. I'm also a journeyman plumber in the state of Washington. I'm also I also own Chipper Plumbing and Radiant, which my son, Josh, runs now. And I'm also the chairman of the Plumbing Advisory Board to Labor and Industries as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today, Todd. Today we're just going to talk about the story of how we met and your journey through entrepreneurship and all the cool things you're up to. You've made a lot of changes over the last few years, and it's been really cool watching your story unfold. So, maybe let's just get into how we met initially. I think it was through BNI, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think one of your team members at the time had been in that meeting, and I think you were as well. You reached out to me. You wanted to talk about some video stuff. I stopped by. And I remember, you wanted something, and then I totally sold you on a different direction. And
I didn't know what I needed.
Yeah, you didn't know what you needed, and I kind of laid out the vision for you. It ended up working out. It was a really fun project, and we worked on a brand video for you, a recruiting video, and then from there, we just kind of stayed in touch over the years.
Yeah.
It's just been really, really awesome. Like I said, watching your journey unfold. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to you. In terms of tell me what you've got going on right now. Like tell me what's going on in your world. What are you focused on?
Well, I moved into the role of executive director for the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors back in. The process started in. Well, it's been in work for a decade, but really I went full time March 1st. I really kind of started the middle of January on it, and just kind of rolled in. And really the focus is to. Our industry has some pressure on it. The plumbing industry does, and I'm involved in trying to bring solutions and answers to make it better for everybody, for the plumber, the contractor, and the consumer. Most importantly, the consumer. And that's really where. That's probably 99% of my focus is that. I want to bring unity and oneness to an industry that doesn't have it.
That's incredible. Yeah, and it's a really noble pursuit because I think, especially with your background, having industry experience in the plumbing industry, everything that you know how to represent the folks that you're eventually going to be talking about, right, and being a part of. So tell me about how you first got into entrepreneurship, because the podcast is really about how people became entrepreneurs and all their journey along the way. Tell me maybe there was a critical point in your life. Like, what was it that made you want to pursue it?
Well, I had been working as a plumber for a contractor in Seattle area, and I didn't realize that I had any entrepreneurial abilities or spirit about me. And I ended up having an opportunity come my way to help out with the board of directors at a local church, and I got involved in that. Next thing I knew, they were asking me to be the chair of that board, and I did that and saw that church through some transition time. And then once there was some pressure on me from my employer. Bottom line is that he was promising me stuff, and then he wasn't fulfilling it. And that one day it was just too much, pushed me over the edge. And my wife says that I was kicked out of the nest in a sense. And because of that, because this gentleman wasn't fulfilling promises, I quit. I quit, got fired. I'm not sure, both at the same time. And Josh, my son, was working there at the same time. And next thing I know, we were in business. I actually, to back up a second, when I realized that he wasn't fulfilling his promises, I did approach him and tell him, hey, that's cool. Tell you what, I'll do those things, but I'll just go do it. I'll do it as side work. How's that sound? He said to me, yeah, okay, all right, sounds good. And And then I went, okay, well, since you're agreeing to that, I'll take it one step further. How about I'll go get a business license, and I'll just do it I'll do it legitimately under a business. Oh yeah, okay, all right, that sounds good, sure, yeah. And then next thing that was, so by December 31st of that year, so of 2013, December, we had the entity created, we had done all of that, and then by March, the pressure got enough where it pushed me over the edge, and I had to go out full time. And yeah, I was scared.
Yeah, tell me about what was going through your head, when you were thrust into the deep end, right? You have to go full time. You're not sure what the hell is going to happen. Wait, how are you going to make it work?
Yeah, I was super scared. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what it took to run a business. I had no idea what it took to run a business. Zero. And I just did what I knew, and we made it through. I mean, let's put it this way. When I was driving in the car, I was so stressed I couldn't listen to anything but electronic music. I couldn't listen to anything with words in it. I couldn't listen to news. I couldn't listen to anything because I was literally petrified with what I had to do. I started asking questions, talking to people, getting, just where you can't go anywhere but forward. I couldn't go anywhere but up. I mean, so we just put our nose to the grindstone and went out and found a few customers, kept us busy, and I don't know how customers found us because we did not have effective marketing at all. I don't even know how people found us, but they did. They did. Yeah, super scared.
I think that's something that a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. I mean, I see it commonly all the time with businesses. Is like, how do we do lead gen? How do we find people that need our services? How did you start to grow your business and start to get out in front of people more? Like, what were some of the things that you did, the tasks, maybe the daily things? I don't know. How did you start to ramp it up and be like, okay, how can we build like a legitimate business?
I didn't do much. The calls came in, and we realized at one point that we needed to have someone else on staff, and so we did that. Hired family to run the office, and we just kept pushing forward. We didn't do anything to create more business. It just kept coming our way, and so we just had to bring some staff on. And at that time as a tradesman, most tradesmen, their perspective is quality. I got to do quality work, and that's what we focused on. And we didn't want the mess of hiring other people that were already in the industry that floated around, because that's problematic. It has its problems. So we decided we wanted to try to grow plumbers from the ground up. So that's what we did. We would invest in people and apprentices, brand new people green to the industry, and bring them up as much as we could. And we would hire other apprentices that kind of floated around a little bit, figured they were still moldable to our ways. And I'll be honest with you and tell you that that's a misfocus, because at the end of the day, being a successful businessman doesn't necessarily mean just quality, just quality work. And most of the time, I think if there's one thing I've learned, the customer doesn't know the difference. They just want their stuff fixed. That's what they want. They just want to make sure stuff is operating. They don't know the difference between something that's going to last 3 years or 10 years. They don't. They just want it fixed and working right now. And yeah.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point where it's, people like to shop around, and a lot of times they don't really care as long as the problem gets fixed and who can do it the cheapest, right? But those aren't really your clientele anyway, right? And that could go back to like, who are you actually targeting, and how are you focusing on those people? So I think this is a really interesting topic. Tell me about, because what did they say, that you were the filet mignon of the plumbing industry, right?
Yeah, I think that was Anna.
That was Anna, yeah. Shout out to Anna if she's watching this.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me. I'm going to switch it over to you here. Tell me about how you established that brand, right? Aside from quality work, of course.
I think that what we did was what we started to focus on is the customer experience. That's what matters to the consumer, is an experience. They don't, again, they don't care if that hose faucet or that toilet you put in the house, they don't know if it's a 3-year or a 10-year toilet. They don't know if it's going to not clog or break sooner than that. They just don't know those things. And to educate the customer about that ends up becoming too much information. So what we do is we want to develop a relationship with the consumer, provide a solid experience for them so that they know that if they know they can trust you, then they have you in their back pocket. When they need you, they're going to call you. So we began to focus on the experience.
Yeah, I think that's huge for almost any industry. I mean, the product is the product, and you can have a really good product, but a big part of the consumer experience is going above and beyond and going that extra mile and really making the process memorable for people, right? So tell me, I want to circle back to something that you said earlier, which I thought was really interesting, is a successful business person. What does that actually mean to you? Because I think that word, that phrase.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did. Yeah, that thing gets thrown around a lot. But I mean, it doesn't even have to be in business if you don't want to talk about it in the business context. But like, what does success look like for you?
All right. So I've been thinking about this question about what does success look like, and for me, I can't really tell you. I can't define it, because I think that success is accomplished in the goals that you create for yourself. So if I set out for a goal, if I set a goal and I reach and I'm going to map out a plan to accomplish a goal, when I accomplish that goal, I was successful. Now it doesn't matter what it is. If I say I'm going to make sure that I brush my teeth at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's not one of my goals. But let's say that's, and then if you accomplish that goal, you create that habit, you've been successful at something. I've been saying this recently. This is going to throw things into a little bit of a, this is a rabbit hole kind of. Love, you have to love people, right? We have to love people. And love never fails, okay? Love never fails. So if you can't be successful at anything, just love people. You'll be successful. You know why? Because it never fails. So, I mean, if you just love people, you can be successful. So does success always mean money? Not to me. So to some people, that's a definition of success. And it can be a definition of success. Because if they set a goal, mapped it out, went and accomplished those things, and accomplished their goals, then they were successful. And if that means that money was a part of it, or success, or wealth, or whatever was a part of it, then they accomplished that. That's success. But if you set a goal for something to do at your job that's going to take you a week to accomplish, and you accomplish it, it's success.
I agree with you on this being a rabbit hole because I have a lot of similar thoughts to you, and I want to add to it a little bit here. So, to me, success, I used to think of it in terms of monetary, like a monetary benchmark, right? And I think that's the way a lot of people look at success, and I think there's a reason for that, is that we're conditioned when we grow up by society to get a good job, make sure it's practical, get your degree, right? And that's the traditional route that most people know, and that you have to go get a job that pays well and all this stuff. And I think money is very useful. You need money for things. Like let's not.
It's necessary.
It's absolutely necessary. You need to make money. But I used to place so much emphasis and significance on money that in the times of my business when and inevitably there are downtimes, no matter what industry you're in, there will be downtimes as an entrepreneur. That when there were those downtimes, all of a sudden I'm not hitting that benchmark, and what am I? Am I not successful anymore? No, you can be successful in a number of ways. To me now, it's evolved, and to me, success is: am I making the money that I need to make? Am I making enough to have a little bit to invest as well? And then aside from that, am I taking care of people? Am I having meaningful conversations with people that I want to surround myself with? Am I spending enough time with my girlfriend? Am I spending enough time with my family? Am I doing fun things that I enjoy doing? Am I learning new skills or tinkering with other stuff? Do I have time to do this podcast? And stuff like this. Like, this is my leisure time. So success can be defined in so many ways, and I think too often people just focus on that monetary aspect of it.
They do.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Todd. Since we're talking about a little bit of like the downtimes, like I just mentioned. What were some of the challenges that you kind of ran into, and how have maybe those evolved over time?
Whoa, man, there's a lot of content for that. Essentially, anything that like I said, when I started, I didn't know anything about how to run a business. Now I do. Now I know now I understand what it takes, and I don't know how we made it. Down to hard times, down times, difficult times. I think I've literally done everything wrong that you can do wrong. Like, or I should say, every topic of business I've done wrong and had to learn. But that's okay, because that's how I learn. I prefer it that way. I prefer to learn that way because it's more impactful for me than have somebody tell me, hey, this is what you should do. This is where you should go. That's just how I learn. I'm a tradesman, and we learn by doing. And some of the hard things are marketing. Marketing is hard. It took me a long time to wrap my mind around that. Software is hard for a tradesman because we're out there, we have our hands physically on things, right? We're putting things in, we're repairing things, we're installing, everything's physical. Whereas in the software world, it's not quite that way. It's hard to comprehend for us. So software has always been a difficulty, but I understand it a lot better now than I did 10 years ago. That's for sure. And I would say COVID, and I'll tell you one of the hardest things. We decided to break into HVAC, and we hired a guy, and had a great attitude. So we invested a bunch of money into this, and I didn't have a plan. And that proved to be fatal in some ways. And this guy him and his wife ended up getting pregnant, and then they decided they needed to be near family, so they were going to move out of the area. This man is still a close friend of mine. There's no hard feelings with this person, but he had circumstances that changed things, and we didn't plan for that. We didn't think about that, and consequently, we lost that entire investment, and ended up being a mistake. Well, I wouldn't say a mistake, because we learned something. Anytime you learn something, then there's a success there. So we learned something, and that we're still. And then the other hard part was we had some brand confusion with another company in the area, and so we decided to rebrand. All at the same time, we lost the HVAC side of things, and so that proved to be quite a pit. It was a deep hole for us, and yeah, those were the hardest things we've had to go through so far.
And how do you, just to follow up on that, like how do you maintain or keep the mindset to like keep pushing? Because I think that's what gets people a lot of times with entrepreneurship is, I mean, it's hard. Entrepreneurship is very difficult, and you're going to run into wall after wall after wall after wall. And like you said, they're not mistakes as long as you learn from them, and as long as you don't repeat the same mistake, right? So how is it that you keep yourself motivated to keep pushing? Because it can be really easy to be like, man, this is too difficult, or I'm not cut out for this, right? And just get down on yourself.
I don't know how to answer that, Farid. I would say that I hit some pretty dark times last year. I was involved in a process. I went on a motorcycle ride 2 years ago. I went for 3 weeks, and it was all kind of a soul-searching quest, vision quest, kind of. Some would call it a sabbatical. But I went to try to seek direction, what I needed to do next. I just didn't know. I felt helpless, and I felt like I needed to find some direction because I was just swirling. And that started a process that started out quite hopeful. Ended up becoming a lobbyist as a result of that, and for our trade association. Started breaking into the advocacy industry. Created a business, so I have a business for that now, and so I kept pushing with that. On the other side, with our contracting business, Josh was stepping up, my son, and wanting to take the bull by the horns a little bit, and we went through some. Can I expand on some other things too that kind of connected to that? I'm going to be all over the place for a minute. So after I came back from that 3-week ride that was in 2021, we had decided to get involved with some leadership training with Whole Intentional Leader Development, Wild, Rob McKenna, and he's local here in the area, by the way. And so we started going through their leadership training, which is a year-long program, and it's once a month you meet with a coach, and you got to do the homework and come prepared, and you have to contribute. You have to do the work. And at first I was like, yeah, I don't know about this, and I saw Josh really taking off. Josh was really dug into this thing, and he's like, Dad, this is awesome. He just loved it, and he really excelled. Okay, so I saw that, but for me, I wasn't getting it. It just wasn't happening for me, and we had done some disc stuff over the years, the disc personality. So I'm a strong D.
Driver?
Yeah, dominant.
Yeah.
And then my second is the I, influencer, right there with it. And that TTI profile that I did, I learned a lot about how I communicate, how others should communicate with me. I learned a lot about myself. Through the Wild program, through most of 2021, or 2022, I should say, we were in that program. It was about, so I went on another ride that year. Wasn't solo, so it wasn't like that Vision Quest thing. And I was asking myself a lot of questions because I was on the motorcycle a lot, and you have to think. And I started asking myself questions about, okay, what are you doing this for? What are you going to get out of this? Why are you not putting the work in? What? And I came back and decided I needed to lean into it more. And so I started to do that, and I started reading my disc profile. I started leaning into the Wild stuff a little more, and at the beginning of 2023, this year, we recontracted with them and started the process over. The second month is called, you have to discover your calling, is to help you to guide you to your calling and purpose. I wasn't able to define my calling and purpose before, okay? But now I had decided to lean into it some more. I wasn't sure what was going on, but I made the decision to put more effort into it. That's what an entrepreneur does. He decides to put more effort into it. So I did that, and then in January, I did the calling and purpose way ahead of time, before February, and I was able to define it. Actually, what happened was I found another assessment called Working Genius. If you're not familiar with it, everybody that's listening to this, everybody on the planet should go do Working Genius. It costs $25, workinggenius.com. It helps. It takes about 30 minutes. You do this assessment, and it puts a definition to the way that you work and the way that you don't want to work. So I had my calling and purpose. I did the assessment, and I looked at it, and I went, what? There's a definition for the way I work? Like, I was shocked. It absolutely, like, the light bulb went off in my head. My calling and purpose is unity, oneness, and camaraderie. Everything that I do in life, I've always leaned towards those. I've always pushed towards those things. I just didn't know it and couldn't define it. So now I look at this Working Genius thing, and it goes, they tell me, you derive energy from, and you're fulfilled and happy when you're taking ideas at a 30,000 foot view, evaluating projects and ideas to decide if they're good or not. That's why in the political world I excel, because I'm able to take those ideas, extrapolate thought to consequence, and go, hey, you should adjust this, or this is a bad idea. Hey, shift this, and that'll be better. So that's my strength, but I didn't know that anyone could define that, and I didn't know that anyone else thought any different. And then my other one is called, that was called discernment. The other one is called galvanizing, where I derive energy from, and I'm happy and fulfilled when I'm take a project, an idea, or a cause, and I put my arm around the guy next to me and say, hey man, come on, let's go. We're gonna go do this. So I'm good at inspiring others to join in on things, okay? So that discernment, and so when I looked at that, I went, oh, unity, oneness, and camaraderie. That's my calling and purpose. And then I saw that the role opened up for the plumbing, heating, cooling contractors. That role opened up, and I looked at it and I went, this allows me to be in my sweet spot all the time. Now, consequently, so you have the two geniuses, you have two competencies, which are places that you can, ways that you can work, but you're not necessarily fulfilled and you're not necessarily frustrated. But the two frustrations, one of them is called tenacity for me. So like when it comes to, like, say your podcast here, right? If I was the guy that had to set up all the cameras and set everything up and do all the stuff, I'd be like, ugh, it just drags on me. And my gas tank empties really quick. When I have to be the one down in the weeds, making sure that the desired outcome of a project or idea is fulfilled. And so that part for me, I'm like, okay, now that I know that, I know where not to be, or I have to mitigate it some other way. Am I going on too long? So when this role opened up and I saw it, I jumped at it, and I will tell you that since the middle of January, when I identified that and I started moving towards this, I went to Josh, my son, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about this. And I presented the idea to him of being the executive director. And he went, Dad, you should do that. Because he identified, he's like, yeah, he's already seen me have successes, and he's seen me, he's been a part of that. He's been intimately, he can see it all the time with me. And so he encouraged me. He's like, yeah, you need to go do this. This is where you need to be. And he was ready to take over the business. Now, he didn't say that to run me out the door so that he could run the business. But it ended up being a benefit. So we decided it would probably be a 3 to 6 month transition for me to transition out of the business. It was so much the right thing. It was inside of about a week and a half that I was out. He was running it. And that's the way it's been ever since. I hardly step foot in the business anymore. And I'm in my sweet spot all the time. And the things, now that I understand my weaknesses, that tenacity part of things, because of that, I have to mitigate that. So I do it with software and asking other people to help me out, or hiring things done. I have a virtual assistant. Hey, can you do these things for me? Yes, we can do those things. Because there's people that's their strength, right? So it balances. And with that being said, I'll tell you that what I'm doing now, I absolutely love. I love it. It doesn't feel like work. I get up at 3:30 in the morning. This goes to my routine. I get up at 3:30 in the morning, and I go into the I do a couple things. I go exercise. I'm in the office. If I don't have time because I got stuff going on, I can go right in the office because it's right across the hall from my bedroom, and I can start working on stuff. The other night, I got up at 3:30 in the morning. I went right in the office, started working. My wife comes in at 8 o'clock at night, and she goes, I'm going to bed now. And I went, oh, what time is it? Oh, okay. I don't want her to go to bed without me. So I quit working. It doesn't feel like work. It's just something I do.
So there's a lot of really good info there. I want to circle back and pinpoint each of these that you just talked about. There's so much good stuff in there. So yeah, let's circle back here. So I think to kind of paint the picture for the things that you do like doing, right? The things that you're competent at, and your frustrations, right? You went through that whole thing with, what is it, Working Genius?
Yep.
I think that's so important to identify that stuff, whether you take something like Working Genius or whether you like really just sit down and think about like what it is. I coach some videographers and I mentor other people in sales and running a video business and stuff. And a lot of them right off the bat will ask me like, well, what kind of video should I make? Should I go into wedding stuff? Should I do real estate? And to me, it's like, you don't really know until you try all these different things and you figure out what you like and what you don't like. And what are your non-negotiables, and how much do you want to be working per week? And what does work look like for you, right? Like there's all these different things where if you do enough, you'll start to understand, okay, cool, this is where I'm in my sweet spot, as you would say, right? I call it flow state, where you're doing something and it's something that you enjoy so much that you lose track of time, And that's one way to figure out, like, hey, like, I actually really enjoy doing this, right? So it doesn't feel like work. You also said that. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm definitely going to go take that assessment. Yeah, I'm interested to see what I'm going to score in. But I feel like I know myself pretty well, and I don't mind the tenacity part of it. I don't mind like doing all that stuff, but I do like to be more of a project manager. So I like to bring people together, like this person here, this person here, this person, and this is how everything fits together, and this is how we get it done. So I like to kind of be in that role a lot of times. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned about going and look at the working genius yourself, but let me ask you a question. What would it look like if everybody on the planet was only working where their strengths are, not where their frustrations are? What would that look like for this planet? What would it look like for humanity? It would look quite different. That's why I encourage people to go do it, because if everybody's happy, then we don't have all the divisiveness, we don't have all the anger, we don't have all the sadness. I mean, there's it's not utopia, but it's definitely a better thing.
So this actually is an amazing question, because it gets to the root of why I started this podcast in the first place. Because the whole thing behind this podcast, the Unscripted project, is that life is not a script, and there is no one prescribed path that everybody follows for ultimate happiness. It's not, you go get your traditional job, you get married, you have kids, and then you retire. That is one path. But there is no one-size-fits-all approach to life. And if you are truly doing something you love, that's when you win, And if everybody can do that, we're not going to be wasting potential, human potential, Like, there's nothing wrong with going and getting a 9-to-5, but there's a lot wrong with a 9-to-5 that you hate.
Right.
And there's a lot wrong with living living somebody else's life, because you think you're pressured into doing it. That to me is a waste of life and a waste of human potential. So to answer your question, what if everybody was doing things that they enjoyed and that they were good at? There would be no wasted potential, and we'd be able to accomplish amazing things. And there, like you said, there would be less divisiveness in that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Where would society be? Where would we be? How much more advancements would we have in things? How much less illness would there be, because you don't have that? You're not stuck in this thing that frustrates you all the time, and it eats at your soul and affects your health, etc., etc. I mean, I could go on and on, but in my opinion, if everybody did everybody was working in their genius, because think of it this way: when you're working in your genius, when you're working where your strengths are, it's not work, and you can do it for a long time. If you're involved in things that rob your energy from you because they're frustrating, your gas tank empties really quick, and now you're not productive. It eats at your soul. I mean, it's a difference between night and day in life.
That's called burnout too. You keep doing things too much of something that you don't enjoy that much, or even too much of anything, but especially things that you don't really enjoy that much. You do too much of that. That's how you gas out. Yeah, you burn out. Tell me, Todd, you talked a little bit about some of the low points, and challenges. Is there anything else that you want to cover there? I know you mentioned this was a big one for you. Like, because there's this picture of entrepreneurship where, like, oh yeah, you get to be your own boss and make all this money, right? And it's this amazing thing. But I feel like there's not a lot of people talk about the other realistic side of entrepreneurship and how hard it can be.
Yeah. So I told you that I would be open and honest, and what I'm going to say is not going to be public, I guess, since it's on a live stream. But in the fall of last year, fall of 2022, I found myself thinking about stuff that I wouldn't normally think about. And I asked myself the question numerous times: what would this planet look like without me on it? And I found myself pondering that a lot more than I ever did before in life, because I didn't know where I was supposed to be, and I wasn't enjoying being an entrepreneur at my contracting business anymore. And I didn't know the answer. Everything started looking really hopeless for me. And I started asking that question and pondering those thoughts more than I thought. And I would find myself and I'd catch it and I go, what are you thinking about? Like, why are you having that conversation in your head? You know? And that was the time I decided to start investing more in the leadership program Wild. And then when I found the Working Genius, everything came together. So what an entrepreneur does in those situations is, yeah, you might have a really dark, low time, but you press on and you try to find solutions and you try to find answers. And, you know, it hasn't ever been the case for me that I had to find something like that personally for myself. I've always had resolve about things. I've always had I don't like to lose. And I'll do anything not to lose. And I think that's part of the entrepreneurial spirit as well. You just want to, man, I think that I might not have had that dark time if I'd spent more time planning, laying it out, and accomplishing goals. Lay out the goals, and I think this is a weakness for humanity. They don't set goals, they don't plan it out, and they don't work towards them.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I appreciate you being vulnerable to talk about that on camera. You know, this is something that I think a lot of people deal with, but it's kind of swept under the rug. Lots of people have these thoughts, myself included. You know, I've had thoughts like that before, and a lot of it has come during my entrepreneurial journey, because entrepreneurship can really test you. And you know, going to the thing you mentioned about planning, yeah, it can get really, really easy to like sprint up this mountain, and then you get to the top of the mountain, and then now you're looking around and you're like, wow, like what am I doing on top of this mountain? Is this even the mountain that I wanted to climb? You know, in my video business, I love my video business. I love serving clients, but for a while there was a time where I just was sprinting just to sprint. I wasn't asking myself why. And I think why is a really important question for anything, especially in entrepreneurship.
100%. What's your why now?
My why right now is to have conversations like these with people and spread knowledge and get more people into entrepreneurship if this is something that they think they would want to pursue. And not just like the glamorous side of entrepreneurship, but also the side that we're talking about right now. Mentorship. I love to mentor other people. I love to pass on what I've learned.
So do I.
You know, I think it's really cool to impact people using the video business. It's obviously, you know, does a lot of good for a lot of businesses and nonprofits that we work with, but my scope and my scale is limited to the company. You know, when I can mentor somebody, they can then go and pass that on to somebody else as a chain reaction. It's a trickle-down effect, a ripple effect. So that's what gets me really excited, more so than any kind of business financial goal, you know. So to answer your question, that's it.
Helping people.
Helping people, yeah.
I agree. Same here.
I think that's the point. I think that's a big point of life, just in general, is to serve other people.
I call that loving people.
Yeah.
And if you love people, as we said earlier, you can't fail.
Boom. There's your quote right there. All right, Todd, just a few more here.
Sure.
Your favorite big win on your journey as an entrepreneur?
My favorite big win is, I already talked about it, and that was the realization that my Working Genius, helping me to find my calling and purpose. The day in mid-January, I think it was January 25th, my son's birthday, the light bulb went off and it shone bright. It's like all of a sudden, everything that I'd been looking to find out and discover and put the pieces of the puzzle together, if you will, all happened on that day. And that's my biggest win. Now, I'll tell you that in 2017, I was awarded Industry Person of the Year. We got another legislative award a couple years after that. We passed a bill in Olympia revamping the plumbing industry. So I've had some big wins along the way, but nothing compares to me being able to understand my calling and purpose of unity, oneness, and camaraderie. And I love to say it.
Oh, that's amazing, man. And I hope everybody gets to have the time to reflect and really figure that out.
Yeah, it takes effort.
Because I think, you know, it's a concerted effort. Yeah, it's a concerted effort. And I think if you don't do that, you're just kind of sleepwalking through life, in my opinion. You have anything else to say there?
Well, I mean, sleepwalking through life, you're either, I've been saying this lately, there's two types of people. There's the ones that ask themselves the question, what's in it for me? And there's the ones that ask themselves the question, how can I give back? The ones that answer that question, how can I give back, and then get involved, those are the ones that are successful. If all you're in it as for is you, can't say if you're going to be successful.
Yeah, I've been having this conversation with different people about how do you go the distance, you know, in whatever that you decide to do. And that's not being focused on yourself.
Well, not only that, but find your calling and purpose and your genius and stay in those things. Then you have the ability to run a lot farther because your gas tank don't empty as quick.
So I want to talk about what you're excited about for the future, and then we'll wrap it up.
What I'm excited about for the future. Well, I'm involved in a pretty heavy effort right now to grow our trade association, Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors. We're kicking off a YouTube channel. I don't know where any of that goes yet. If I'm doing what you're doing later on, I don't know. But the YouTube channel is going to be called Todd's Rambling from the Road because it pairs my love for motorcycling to my love for my industry and growing our association. Because I want to create unity and oneness, camaraderie. I'm going to do it by bringing all of the contractors together in our industry so that we're strong. Because I say this a lot too, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I'm at the table on your behalf, so join with me. Let's work together. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen over the next year to two for our trade association as we grow it, where it goes. There's some other things, you know, the vision is much bigger than that. I'm not going to share that part right now. But as I see the successes of the industry coming together, I'm on to the right thing here. We just had a golf tournament last week. We sold it out a month ahead of time. We've never done that. And I think it's because there's a renewed energy in our association, and I think it comes from, I'll be honest and say, I think it comes from my perspective of unity, oneness, camaraderie. It's okay to say that now, and people are hungry for it. We've been so divisive over all the things that go on politically. You know, it's like now, there's somewhere that we can get along with other people. I want to be there. So let's get along. Let's find out where we have common ground, and let's move towards those things. And there's a lot of details in all of that have yet to come to fruition. We're setting out on a path. We're going to accomplish goals. We're going to be successful in that, and I'm super excited to see where it goes. I can tell you this, that it's right there. I want to grab it, but I can't yet. I got other things I have to do along the ways before I can grab it. So that excites me and energizes me to go, okay. And the people that I'm working with, the people that are alongside me in this effort, I could list off 5 or 6 of them right now. And it's like, some of these people have become some of my closest folks to me, comrades, because we're all sharing the same purpose and the same goals of accomplishing these things to grow our association. And you know, if I can, the reason that I jumped at this is because of this potential success of this unity and oneness, right? If we can accomplish that, then it's just the trade, the industry association, plumbing, heating, cooling contractors. It's just the avenue. That's just the vehicle. It happens to be where I'm an expert. I'm a subject matter expert in the plumbing industry. So that's where my passion. So I took that expertise, tie it to my calling and purpose, my working genius. So I'm hopeful for some huge successes in the next couple of years.
I love that you're tying your calling and purpose to all of the efforts that you're doing for your industry now. I think that goes back to, you know, in some ways, mentorship, right? Where you're passing things down because you're in a position to do so and give back. So I think that's amazing, man. I'm really happy for you.
Yeah, thanks.
So to wrap it up, top 3 tips
Ooh.
for anybody that wants to get into entrepreneurship. It could be specific to your industry. It could be just in general. But like, what are the top 3 things that you would tell somebody you wish maybe that you wish you would have known when you started?
Yeah, I would say get some leadership training. Understand yourself through some sort of personality assessment, and understand your working genius. Those would be my top 3 tips, because that's what helped me understand where I needed to be. And if everybody can understand that, the path will be smoother. It'll be better. You'll be more fulfilled, and you'll be successful that way.
Amazing tips. 10 tips that are going to force people to really reflect.
I hope.
Which I think is huge. So, Todd, I appreciate your time today, man. It's been
Thank you for having
fun. Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation and sharing this with more folks. So, appreciate it.
Thank you.